Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. It's my birthday this week, and I kind of claimed the whole month of December because everyone is so busy with holiday preparations and parties and the like that, I got so many friends that, oh man, I missed your birthday, can we get together? And it's like, yeah man, as far as I'm concerned, it's my birthday till December 31st. So thank you very much for listening to this, and more podcasts coming this month of Word Balloon. Questions or comments about the show, john@wordballoon.com. Please reach me via email. That's the way to do it. And follow me on Twitter under John Word Balloon. Follow me on Facebook under my name, John Suntress. Thank you very much for listening to the commercials. I know that they sometimes repeat the same commercials. Out of my hands, that is my fine network, Spreaker, selling the product. I thank them very much. I thank you for your patience in listening to repeat commercials till we get to the good content of Word Balloon. The good stuff is coming in one more minute. Thanks a lot for listening. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the weekend and welcome to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Henry Barajas joins me on this episode. Now, who's Henry? Henry is a former journalist who made his bones at Heidi McDonald's site, The Beat. That's when I first met Henry. He is also a Latinx author from Tucson, known for his graphic memoir about his great-grandfather. It's titled Voz De M.A.Y.O, Tata Rambo. His grandfather was a very important advocate for his tribe, and we talk a lot about this great graphic novel and the changes that his grandfather made in Tucson, Ramon Jaurigue. And man, it's a very interesting and cool story. Henry tells us a lot about it, but I really recommend you pick up the graphic novel that he has produced. He's here to talk about that. He also works at Top Cow right now. He's the director of operations over at Top Cow, working with Matt Hawkins and company, Mark Silvestri and the like. We talk a bit about that. And it's great to hear from Henry as a new creator-owned creator out there. He gets into very interesting details about how to market your book, and I think provides some really good information to those of you that are trying to break through in this very noisy time. Actually, a couple of the guests on Word Balloon this month are going to also reflect on their observations of the market. I'm always happy to hear about that. But this is a long time coming. I've known Henry, as I said, for a really long time. I always enjoyed our conversations at conventions and at the after hours, and now we finally get to talk on the record. Henry Barajas for today on Word Balloon. All brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Thank you greatly, League, for your support via Patreon. Patreon.com/wordballoon. That's the front page of my Patreon page. And as I always say, Word Balloon is free. If you like what you hear and you want to help me out and subscribe and help the cause out, is Word Balloon worth $1 a month to you? Is it worth the price of a comic book a month to you? I don't want you to break the bank for me, but if you like what I do here and you feel like you're getting something out of this, if you can help out through a subscription via Patreon, I'd really appreciate it. Patreon.com/wordballoon. Thank you for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Word Balloon is also brought to you by Aftershock Comics, who's having a great year here in 2019, and I'm sure that will roll into 2020 as well. But really interesting books, great genre-bending subjects from some top creators, people like Marguerite Bennett, and of course Garth Ennis, and our buddy Cullen Bunn, our buddy Tim Seeley, our buddy Phil Hester. Paul Jenkins has done several great books at Aftershock. Brian Azzarello did a fantastic miniseries at Aftershock, American Monster. So many people that I really respect in comics are currently working over there or have in the past. Juan Doe, an excellent writer-artist who does amazing stuff. We just talked to Matthew Klickstein a couple weeks ago and his incredible book, You Are Obsolete, that is absolutely worth your attention. Animosity from Marguerite Bennett. Donnie Cates, we talked to him on stage live at Terrificon about baby teeth and a lot of other things. So tremendous books and really genre-bending ideas. Go to their website, look them up, check out the titles, check out the descriptions. You'll find full story descriptions, preview pages, and the diamond codes on how to order these books through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. All right, without further ado, let's get into it now. A wonderful conversation with Henry Barajas talking about the changes that Tucson, Arizona went through to become a much more urban development, and also a city that took care of its native people, like the Native Americans and Mexicans that lived in tribes in Tucson. A very interesting story, and it's real, from Henry Barajas, talking about it on today's Word Balloon. Boy, here's somebody I've known in comics for a really long time, and as a guy who's worked behind the scenes, and now he's putting out comics. Henry Barajas, welcome to Word Balloon. Good to talk to you, man.
Thank you for having me, John. I always tell people I didn't go to college. I listened to Word Balloon.
Oh, Jesus. Aim higher, as I always tell people who are incredibly kind.
When I think about it, I'm like, wow, I should probably have thought a little bit.
No, man, that's a really nice compliment. I genuinely appreciate it. But yeah, man, no, I'm glad that you got something out of listening. And hey, I hope in any small way, whatever words of wisdom the guests have had have helped you in creating your current run of comics.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, there's a couple instances like the Bendis tapes, of course, the Fireside Matt Fraction conversations, but there was a conversation you had with Nick Spencer, like once he started, becoming the Goliath, writer that he is now. He had said that he lived life, and I was like 20 or 19 when I first started listening. And I was like, he goes, yeah, you need to go live life before you write comics. And I always wanted to, but I knew I wanted to do it, and I was doing like responsive art, but I didn't really knew what I wanted to say. So, him running for office and doing all these like short business things, I kind of said, yeah, I should probably do that. And I became a journalist and ran a jazz festival and did all these, things outside of comics that I'm able to wrap back in. And I think it was because of that. And the other conversation that inspired me was you and Kelly Sue had one of her first talks, and she worked at Citibank, and I worked at Citibank while I was listening to that.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I could do this. And that's when I realized, oh yeah, this is something I could do now. So no, I'm very grateful for the podcast, and I'm very honored to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. Absolutely. And, I also worked at a bank, so I can appreciate the having that
right.
in your belt as well. But we are here to talk about what has been a successful Kickstarter campaign and now an image graphic novel, La Voz De M.A.Y.O, Tata Rambo. Am I saying it properly?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, right. Perfect.
There we go. Very cool. Interesting, very cool Army story. You are talking about a great history of the Mexican-American Yaqui and the M.A.Y.O organization. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so my great-grandfather was the son of a couple that came from Mexico, basically coming from Nogales to the Sonoran Desert area. And he ended up, his father fought in World War I. He died due to complications of mustard gas exposure.
Wow. Yeah.
And then his mother died when she had a stroke. And there's really no way to know why or how that didn't go treated but he had lost his mother and father at a very young age. So he went into this, orphanage in the Pascua land. It was just land back then. Tucson wasn't really the big city that it became after World War II. So he had fought in World War II, came back, married my great-grandmother. Tucson experienced 100% population increase after World War II. There was a lot of aerospace engineering jobs that were popping up thanks to Howard Hughes.
Okay. Wow.
And
okay, sure.
Yeah, and the military was ramping up Davis Mountain Air Force Base, and the University of Arizona was catering to the aerospace engineering
sure, industry.
I guess, yeah industry. So and Tucson also is home to the world's best deaf and blind school. So people from all around the world moved to Tucson for this school.
Wow.
And so yeah, there was just a lot of things happening, and the city needed to grow. And my great-grandfather and my great-grandmother had this family in the Pascua land that they've had since the early 1800s. And it was Tucson wanted to build the Interstate 10 through their land. And before that, my great-grandfather, Ramon Jaurigue, started a little organization called M.A.Y.O, Mexican American Yaqui Others. And they had lobbied and worked with Morris K. Udall, who was a huge supporter of Native Americans in southern Arizona.
A politician, a great senator, as I remember.
Yes.
Go on.
Yeah, so he worked with Morris K. Udall, and for whatever reason, Morris K. Udall and the appointed leader of the tribe, Arcemo Valencia, they got all the credit for stopping that from happening. But at the end of my great-grandfather's life, I decided to write his biography. So I started to glean all these documents he had in his trailer, and I read that the organization had a lot to do with that effort, and they led the effort, and for whatever reason, they were never given any credit. But I realized that my great-grandfather never wanted credit for anything. He was very humble man, very quiet to himself, but very extroverted, like in public, and was like very entertaining and hosted parties. And consequently, him not wanting credit overshadowed or put everybody else in the dark. So I used the documents that I had and the 2 years of journalism that I had experienced in Tucson, working at the Arizona Daily Star and the Tucson Weekly, and tried to map together this story. But then I got John Lewis's March, and I realized, I've always wanted to make comics, and this is something I've done before, and I should just use this opportunity to make something like this.
That's great. Wow, man. So yeah, John Lewis's story in March inspired you to tell your great-grandfather's story. That's incredible. Go on.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I knew it wasn't going to be as good. But I wanted to do something like, this is an attempt at, I wanted to make something this cool. But the other thing that inspired me was Mouse, Art Spiegelman's Mouse.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, great story. Oh, my God.
Yeah, in high school, my high school history teacher, my junior year, his name was Eric Johnson, really funny guy, and he used Mouse to talk about the Holocaust.
Sure.
And I'd never been more engaged in the classroom in my life.
Isn't that amazing, man? Honestly, as someone, I got a couple decades on you, and I think it's pretty incredible that Mouse has become this textbook. And I know a lot of people whose kids have, Mouse as part of their curriculum, and then how to learn about the Holocaust. Yeah.
Yeah. So that changed my life, and I ended up dropping out of high school to work full time.
Wow.
So I don't know what else I could have gleaned, but I'm glad I had that experience before I left.
That's interesting. So you went to work right out of high school and everything. I've got other friends that have done that as well, and have had.
Yeah, I used to work for a movie theater when I was 16.
Jeez.
And that was the best job I had. I would work like 40 hours a week, and I'd sleep at school, and then I ended up dropping out after graduating my junior year, and I became a bill collector for 2 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was 16 years old asking people for their, for their banking information. I didn't even have any like a bank that I used. So
wow,
it was just, it was like my whole approach was Goodfellas, fuck you, pay me.
Sure.
And,
hilarious.
And the boiler room with that was my mantra. Only the closers drank coffee.
Damn, man.
When I was 17.
Absolutely. That's insane. Wow. And then, so how did you transition? That's pretty amazing, though, that with a little schooling that you went into journalism as well.
Yeah, well, I have, Word Balloon was a big influence on me, and learning about comics and the comic book industry, and working for Heidi McDonald. I wrote for Comics Beat for a number of years, and I did all that unpaid. But I got so many connections, and I got to go to Comic-Con and do all these, amazing things because of that experience I had. I was able to get a newsroom assistant job, and I was answering phones and entering in the daily deaths.
Oh, the obits.
And then they were like, so there are obituaries. There's the obituaries, and then there's the people that can't afford the obituaries.
Oh, wow.
There's just the public record deaths.
Wow. Yeah.
And the first day I started entering those in, I had to enter my great grandmother's name, and it was like a weird just moment, because before she had passed away, I was interviewing for the job, and I had told her, Nana, I might be working for the newspaper. And she said, she's always joked. Every time someone come bring up the newspaper, she would say, I love reading the newspaper because I get to see which one of my friends died today.
Oh, Jesus.
And so she just would laugh, and everyone would be like super depressed after that. But, I got that humor from her, and I got to enter her name on the day I started doing that. And that was such an interesting turn of events. But, so all those years I started writing about comics, like local comic book day, and how it was important to support your comic shops. And I got to cover a steampunk convention. I got to write about so many things. And it really gave me an appreciation for Tucson that I didn't have growing up. Cause, you grow up somewhere and you kind of hate where you live and everything sucks. And then when I got to have those experiences, I got to really enjoy the old Pueblo.
That's really cool, man. Now, first of all, how old were your grandparents when they passed away?
Well, my great-grandfather passed away in 2017, and he was like 88, I think.
Great.
Yeah.
That's a good age, absolutely, man.
Yeah, and then my great-grandmother passed away when she was like 81.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have I guess I have a long life ahead of me.
That's terrific, man. No, and I mean, again, the accomplishments that your great-grandfather was able to do for the tribe and everything was living in the tribe. I'm assuming you were living in. Were you living in that area, or were you living in a different?
Yeah,
part?
I was. I grew up in. I had the privilege of growing up in the neighborhood that he and M.A.Y.O rebuilt. They built from the ground up. They had sidewalks installed, plumbing, electricity. They got trash collection started there. They built the community center where the Basque tribe holds their annual fariseos and Easter ceremonies where they do the deer dancing and they play music, and they have these men craft their masks and they march around the community in a service. So whenever something bad is happening in your life, they'll ask God, can you please do this for me? And I will do this ritual for 5 years, or it's an arbitrary number. I don't know how they come up with a number, but then if they get what they ask for, they have to do this thing every year and sleep outside and build the cross, and then with the palm, on Palm Sunday, it's very Catholic, and then they burn it down, and then they celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And on Easter, it's a very beautiful ceremony, but the M.A.Y.O had that whole facility built for them so they could do that. And that's where the Native Americans could go and get government assistance, like food,
sure,
and just some, materials. So we would go there once a week and get the government cheese and the government ham, pork. And it's it was such we would get free cereal and milk and,
yep.
And yeah, I mean, I was very lucky to have grown up in that. If it weren't for Ramon and M.A.Y.O, I'm sure they would have had all that, but it probably would have shaped out to be differently, because the tribe would have been displaced, and who knows how they would have been able to stay together.
I understand and understand. I think, again, and especially people that grew up in urban areas and stuff like I did, we take for granted infrastructure, and it is really, as a history fan, it's really interesting to learn how much underdeveloped land there was occupied in the United States, and that it was things like the New Deal in the 30s, and then also efforts in the 40s and beyond to really get infrastructure going in a lot of remote areas of the country. And I mean, the Tennessee Valley Authority was one of the New Deal government programs, and it was to literally wire all the rural area in the Tennessee Valley, and that they didn't have electricity, and so
right.
I mean, that's terrific that your great grandfather was so involved in modernizing all the facilities and stuff, and making things better for the tribe. I mean, that's, like you said, I mean, that's amazing that he was so involved in the creation of of Tucson as a thriving city. That's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, and he was largely influenced by the United Farm Workers Movement and Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta. And one of the most prized possessions in our family is a photo of Ramon, my great-grandfather, with Cesar Chavez in Tucson.
Wow. Amazing. Wow, that's incredible, man.
Yeah. So, like, we would always, I would look at that and just be, like, so amazed. Because growing up as a brown kid, you don't have a lot of people to look up to. But, and this is something I've been dying to talk to you about. But, you get a lot of heroes in boxing,
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. We grew up watching Roberto Duran and sure. The main guy in our household was Cesar Chavez, and my family loved him. There was basically an altar dedicated to him, like if he was some sort of saint in our living room. And I just will never forget those years of like him just winning all the time. And then
you're talking about Julio Cesar Chavez.
Julio Cesar Chavez, yeah.
Yeah, go on. As opposed to the advocate, the freedom fighter, and the guy who works for the workers.
The boxer, yeah.
Sure.
And I just remember those years of watching him win all those years, and then meeting what was his name, Oscar de la Hoya, and those really depressing Saturday and Friday nights of watching him lose to De La Hoya. But yeah, I mean, you don't get a lot of now what we say. I mean, from what I've learned is the term that we've been using, or I've been using a lot, is Latinx. There's not a lot of Latinx heroes. So Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez are like the two Mount Rushmore people, So
sure.
It was always nice to see that my great grandfather is an equal.
That's amazing, man. Well, and also again, the book starts with your great grandfather's experiences too in World War II. Was there anything he gleaned from World War II, either positive or negative, that put him, into what he was doing after the war?
I think there was a sense of patriotism. He had a big respect for government.
Interesting.
And I think that also came from working with Cesar Chavez, Udall and Senator DeConcini. They were very instrumental in helping the tribe, and I think he was very involved with that in local government. So I think he was very. I think that he really respected that, but the war, I don't think he appreciated, not that he appreciated. I don't think he never talked about it.
Okay.
It was once that he had talked to my cousin about being in Okinawa, and he asked him what were you doing in Okinawa, and he said I was a sniper, and a good one, and that's all he said. And I think having to take lives was something he probably didn't want to ever talk about or remember. So who knows,
No, I understand, man.
Yeah.
I have it in my family. A lot of World War II vets in my family, they didn't like to talk about it, and really were pretty stone silent about it as well. And I have friends too that have Vietnam vet parents that don't talk about their experiences as well. So I can appreciate that. Was the makeup of Tucson? What was the ratio for, forgive me, brown people versus white people and stuff? And I mean, how much of that was a, problem, or was it easier because there were so many that, the governments were wise to work with, your tribe versus, try and kind of screw them out of things? I mean, what kind of machinations were going on as far as that goes?
At the time, there was a lot of Mexican Americans because they were there first,
sure. Yeah.
And that's just where they lived, and I think Morris K. Udall was smart about that and was able to fight for them and to work with them, and to this day, Morris K. Udall is revered by the Tono Atum nation and the Pascoyaki tribe. And he helped, who is now a congressman and the head of, agriculture that Morris K. Udall was a part of, Congressman Raul Grijalva, who I got to talk to. He was in high school when all this was happening.
Cool.
And
Wow.
he got to witness what was going on, and he was one of the key people I needed to talk to kind of validate what I was trying to say, because the book is a argument that the M.A.Y.O and Ramon did a lot to help the tribe, and I'm very confused as to why none of that recognition or documentation was ever implemented in their history books or in their like their libraries or their museum. And Congressman Raul Grijalva was very candid about what he remembered and how important Ramon was. And and that's at the end of the book. It was important for me to share that information.
That's great, Henry. How is the current Tucson, Chamber of Commerce or whatever, whatever arenas that I would imagine, you want your story to be part of and stuff? How are they receiving the book?
I'm very grateful that the library, Pima County Library, has been very supportive. I'm not sure about the local government. The Tucson. So in the book, there is a character named Ray Friembres who is trying to build the freeway through his own community, and he's inspired by people I've met through the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. When I was working for the Tucson Jazz Festival, we helped start the first Jazz Fest, me and Yvonne Irvin. And she told me it's very important for you to join the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So I did. And I'm sitting at this table with all these guys, and they're all bragging about how they had dinner with Ted Cruz last week. And I had that,
that's helpful. Yeah.
I had that Get Out moment, where like,
sure.
This is this room full.
I thought you meant leave. I didn't think. Yeah, man. Although, yeah, exactly. No, you mean the horror movie Get Out. That's hilarious, man.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And I realized, and a lot of things, So I'm born and raised in Tucson, Arizona. A lot of my family on my father's side, who's from Mexico, they get arrested, get thrown back to Mexico, and we just go and pick them up at the border and take them back home. And this has always been a problem, border security, border enforcement, and a lot of the times Border Patrol agents are Mexican, American, or Latinx people. And it's always interesting to me to see people against their own interests. So that was important for me to make that character not the white guy. It would have been very easy to make it like so black and white, but I wanted to have some sort of conflict.
Damn. That. No, that's amazing, man. Jesus. Yeah, I can't imagine that kind of fear and and living like that, and especially in today's current environment and everything. Jesus. Oof.
Right. No, I'm very grateful that my parents, had me here. They were very careful about they never taught me Spanish because they were afraid that I would speak Spanglish and sound ghetto is how they would say it. And
sure.
And people, so you didn't want to, you wanted to be as American as possible. When I was born, my father wanted to call me Enrique Barajas Jr., and my great grandmother, who was a Native American, who was a Yaqui, she said, no, he was born in America. He needs an American name. So they gave me a German name, Henry.
Wow.
So,
dude, that's amazing, man. Honestly, I'm second generation American, and my grandparents came here, and they certainly wanted their children to, be Americans and everything, but without that fear, and then without that real threat of the bullshit that's happening now at the border.
Yeah.
That's just, there's part of that I can relate to, but also another part where it's like, no, that's a totally different experience, and it certainly would be easier being white to kind of Americanize. I remember Ed Asner, the actor, who was very active in the Screen Actors Guild and very political as well, talking about how the white immigrants could, cut their hair and learn a few proper English, terms and stuff like that, and it was a lot easier for them to assimilate versus the people of color that obviously, had to try and do it as well. So yeah, it's yeesh. Man, Jesus. Yeah. I mean, so this is volume 1. I mean, you're continuing the story.
No, that's the whole story. I mean,
excuse me.
As far as my great grandfather is concerned, but if the numbers are good enough, I'd love to do La Voz De M.A.Y.O, another tribe that was stomped out of history and eradicated from their land, because there's so many stories, and this story in particular is only 50 years old. There has to be more, and I'd love to be able to explore other tragedies.
That's amazing, man. So what is as you say, the border is still a concern, obviously, for I mean, does the tribe still exists, or tell me what's their current status?
So their current status is I mean, if it weren't for the work of Ramon and Mayo and everyone that had supported them, they wouldn't be the multi-billion-dollar casino industry that they are now.
Wow.
They are one of the things that's disappointing, but it's not. I mean, it's just disappointing personally, but I think it's good in a different respect. They're selling back some of the land that my great-grandfather saved.
Oh, wow.
Back to the city. Yeah, so they can build a casino. What really chaps me is back in 2009, I think, the Tucson Unified School District decided to fold the only school, Ritchie Elementary School, that was in that neighborhood. And my great-grandfather and Mayo used to organize there. My great-grandfather, it's mentioned in the book, he was the head of adult education there. And there's so many people in that neighborhood that were able to learn practical skills to apply it elsewhere and get better jobs, to have more money for their families. And that school is just it has reopened, but it's more of a community center. And I think that the tribe should do a better job as far as educating their youth and helping the community, because there's a whole 8 years of kids that had to go to different schools or probably didn't go to school at all. And that really, but at the same time, that's the tribe's prerogative to do what they want with the land because it's theirs.
Do the members of the tribe, do they, the people, do they benefit from the tribe's, wealth and what they've been able to do with the land and stuff? And I mean, is it a good system beyond losing the school, which sucks, obviously? Yeah,
from what I remember, or from what I've learned, is that tribal members get land, but it's off. So in the book, there's a divide between Mayo and the elders that lived in the original land and the Valencia, and he wanted to take them to a different part of Tucson that was very rural and away from everyone. He wanted them to exist on their own as they always have, but Mayo and Ramon wanted to integrate the tribe into the, getting city services and getting help and having access to health care. They started my great-grandfather was one of the many people that started the El Rio Clinic that introduced one of the first clinics. They had founded one of the first clinics that introduced contraceptives to the community.
Wow.
And so it was important for them to be in a place where they can get help, but the tribe wanted to get away from everything, and they did. And so if you were a tribal member now, you get a patch of land out there by the San Javier Mission, which is next to the Tono-Atom Nation. And so the one of the problems that they're having now is the border wall that they're building on the southwest is going to cut through some of the Yaqui and the Tono-Atom Nation's land. So they're trying to stop that from happening.
Wow. Jesus. Yeah. Ugh. God. Unbelievable, man. I'm just, it's important to have books like this out there to explain the real struggles that people have, because again, I mean, it's certainly not covered on the news. And, isn't it interesting? We're in this information age, and really, I think, not only do people fall into their own individual silos of information, but really you would hope that, just some general knowledge would get out there, and it doesn't. And that's sad, man. It's not helping the cause. It's not really helping us all to understand how everybody's living and the needs of the many.
Right. It was funny. I went to the Thought Bubble Festival, and I get off a plane. I don't have access to the internet. I jump on this train to go to Leeds, and the first thing on their BBC News network is President Trump. And we're just our whole algorithm of life and news feeds is just dominated by Trump.
Yeah.
And nothing, no matter what good that's going out there, no matter what needs of the people that are happening, it's just dominated by this administration, this narcissist who just needs the attention of the entire world.
Well, and again, yeah, you're right. He is the president, and unfortunately, whatever people feel about what he's doing, yeah, I mean, he will dominate. But yeah, it's a weird time. We all know it's a weird time. Even I think people who like him would say that as well. I mean, it's I don't know. I'm shaking my head, man. Well, I'm glad that the library is receptive to what you're doing down there. Are there other outlets, or are you trying to get the story in other outlets and stuff? Or and
that's one of the things I've learned from you and all the conversations you've had with creators throughout the years is, I have had interest from Hollywood. The funny thing about this is,
wow.
You've known me for a long time, and I've been in the industry for a long time. And I got a couple of emails from very important studios here in Los Angeles about trying to meet with me and talk about a film or television adaptation of this. And I never got a single email from anybody in comics about, hey, do you want to maybe write something or do something? And maybe that's because I work at Top Cow Productions and they think I'm under an NDA or something, but or I'm at but it was interesting. But yeah, there is Hollywood, as much as everything we could say about Hollywood, but they're making a real concerted effort to for diversity.
Yes.
And they are looking, and this is a comic book first and foremost. If you open this up and you see what the techniques and everything that I've done, it's all to the page. And it would be interesting to see how they would elaborate off that. But yeah, I mean, I'm working with some people that are very active at trying to come up with some sort of adaptation. I would love They See Us, kind of 4-episode, 2-hour long, kind of each piece to kind of have room to explore. But I'm a film guy, so I'd love a 2-hour film about this. But
sure,
I'm not holding my breath.
I understand. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure you've seen a lot of development deals that go nowhere and things, and that thing. But I do agree with you that I do think that especially in the Latinx community, I think that there is a serious effort to tell more stories. And I'm glad to hear that, and I hope that something pays off for you in that department. But if not, regardless, this is a cool comic. Tell me about Jay Gonzo. Tell me about the art.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, I used to make comics, about 8 years ago, and I was doing the Phoenix Comic Con every year for 3 years, and I did Tucson Comic Con. I used to help organize Tucson Comic Con.
Oh wow!
And one year, Jay Gonzo was there, and he had his new La Mano Destino. And I don't know if you're a fan of luchadors or that kind of spirit, but he writes a comic and draws a comic about what if luchadors was the only form of entertainment in Mexico. And it's very beautiful. And if you like the art in La Voz, you will love the art. And there's the kayfabe. And he really leans into the kayfabe in this book. And I was, I'm working at Top Cow.
Explain what the kayfabe is.
Kayfabe is everything in wrestling is real.
Oh, okay. All right, there you go, man.
I don't
watch. Yeah. I'm hip. All right, now I'm with you. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. That's so funny. I continue to learn more lingo about wrestling and stuff, and it's so funny because I watched so much of it in the 70s and 80s. And again, now you kind of know the various lingo of the scenarios to understand the behind the scenes stuff and everything. So now I'm with you. Okay.
Yeah, what I loved about that, I mean, I grew up watching wrestling. My family were all big wrestling fans. We watched it all. And then what I loved about, did you watch the Ric Flair 30 for 30?
I sure did. It was amazing.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't win an Emmy or something for that. Or
you know what else is great, real fast, Ben? Because I want to hear your story. But the Toys That Made Us in the current season on Netflix, they have an episode on wrestling toys, and God, it's as much a history of wrestling as it is the history of the wrestling toys and stuff. And it's an excellent 45 minutes of information and really interesting behind the scenes stories. But please continue.
Yeah, I want to watch that. There's also like a Ninja Turtles episode.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. And My Little Pony and Power Rangers.
Wow.
Those are the 4 episodes of the new season. Yeah, I'm hoping to have Brian on the show soon.
Okay. Yeah, I was the kid that got all the Power Ranger toys, like the first generation, so I need to watch that. And I was jealous of my neighbor who had the, like, Megazord, who had, like, the piece that everything connected to. And I'd always just call, hey, can I come over and go see this thing? And he ended up moving away because his family was in the military. But see, this is what I like about Word Balloon, is talking about stuff that has nothing to do with comics. And I learned so much about film and TV, and a lot of the books I've read to be a better writer is from this. So,
oh, thanks, man. That's great. I'm glad to hear that. That's wonderful. Jesus.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I met Gonzo. I met Gonzo at Phoenix Comic-Con, and he's just like doodling, and he has these amazing like green and pink like tablecloths and these wooden like book stands, and he has a very distinct style. And I introduced myself, and we traded comics, and we always, you know how creators are, we flirt with the idea of working with everybody, like, hey, I'd love to work with you on something,
sure.
And nothing ever comes up of it, but you just never know someday. So Matt Hawkins was asking me what I was working on, and I showed it to him. And I was working with this really cool guy named Frank, and he lives in LA. He's an animator, and he just wasn't the fit for the book. And Matt Hawkins said, hey, you should work with Gonzo on this. If you work with Gonzo, I'll publish your book.
Wow.
And I had Gonzo's phone number in my cell phone, and I was like, I will totally... I'll totally call him right now. And I called him up, and Gonzo found a gap in his schedule, and it was just like a year and 4 months, and we got it done. Thanks to the help of Kickstarter. I mean, unfortunately, Kickstarter has a black eye with the whole union thing. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No, tell me about it. Go on.
Yeah, so Kickstarter, I think, is one of the greatest things that's ever happened to indie comics. But there was some employees that wanted to unionize, and apparently, allegedly, they had lost their jobs for other reasons, but there's a reason to suspect that they had probably lost their jobs because of that. And there's a lot of people losing their jobs because they're...
Kickstarter doesn't want to unionize,
Yeah, so thankfully I know people, and so I did SPX this year, and the last time I saw Tom Spurgeon, and it was that whole SPX show was like funded or sponsored by Kickstarter. So I had to answer a lot of questions, and I'm like, I don't work there, but all I know is that this is just hurting the artists at this point. But because of that, I was able to raise $8,000, and as you know, with Image Comics, you get to own your IP.
Yes,
and it was important for me to own my family's history and not share that.
Well, of course, absolutely.
And I know you are familiar with the market, which is how I've learned a lot about comics is through this show. Doing a single issue monthly about Native American and Mexican American history probably wouldn't have sold well compared to, Walking Dead, the end of Walking Dead when we were putting this out, So
yes.
It was important for me to do a direct to market, initial run. So it was easier for me to print, and at this point we've printed 600 copies of issue 1, and we've sold all of them. They're
Wonderful.
all out there.
Hey, that's great, man.
Yeah, so I think that's it, and I get all the money, and it all immediately goes to the creators. Gonzo got a page rate. My letterer, Bernardo Brice, got a page rate. I hired Claire Napier, who is the former editor-in-chief of Women Who Write About Comics, and it was important for me to find someone like her that didn't live in America and didn't have the connections that Gonzo and I had.
Oh, okay.
So I wanted to pay an editor, and I got to use the Kickstarter funds for that. We made shirts and hats, and we did comics, and 50% of it was all very good friends of mine, people that want to see me do well. So I was very lucky. Then we did 2 more Kickstarters, and we were able to have a full trade and not wait for any back end to get anyone paid, or, you know,
Terrific.
a lot of the times what happens in comics. So I'm currently guilt-free as far as, like, who I owe money to.
That's cool. Have the stores ordered? I mean, and you know, I'm sorry that we didn't talk sooner. This came out on November 13th. The trade. Are the stores receptive? Have you got a nice network of stores that have picked up the trade?
Yes, I have. Do you remember Adam Freeman? You know him?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So he was with Comics Hub, and we got tacos out here in LA, and we were talking about how many Diamond accounts there are. So there's approximately 4,000 Diamond accounts, and he speculates that 80% of the comics sold are from 1,800 comic book stores that are active Diamond accounts. So he was like, all you really need is 1,800 stores to buy one copy.
Sure. Yeah.
And he helped push it through Comics Hub, and every retailer that's using that POS is got a message about the book in a way that I was very grateful for. And when we got our final order number, it was like 1,880 copies.
Outstanding, man. That's fantastic.
You know, it was just like a really like serendipitous number. And so I realized that there's a core group of amazing comic book shops out there that try to get everything for their customers. And so what I did this last year was really lean into the library market. There are 38,000 libraries that buy comics.
Wow! I had no idea that many. That's amazing.
And I learned that at the San Diego Comic-Con. So the San Diego Comic-Con and the San Diego Library partner and do a library day on Thursdays.
Oh yeah.
And I was a part of the community grassroots to comics panel with David Walker and Ezra Clayton Daniels and Candice Mack and the creator of Gender Neutral, Marlene, I believe, is their name or air name. And I learned a lot through the people that worked that worked with the ALA graphic novel roundtable.
Yep.
And basically, there are 38,000 comic books. I mean, there's 38,000 libraries that buy comics, and if I can get 1,800 of that 38,000, that will just double my number.
Sure.
And I'm trying to be smart about this. So I wanted this book to come out as a full trade graphic novel so that people couldn't tell me, oh, this is just a comic book.
Right. They're single issues. Yeah.
Even though it is a comic book,
well,
but this is more than that. As we see with March and the George Takei graphic novel,
yes,
there's an appetite for historical comics that are rooted in people that have struggled politically and because of who they are and what they're trying to accomplish. And I'm grateful that comic book stores and libraries, and I'm having some educators reach out to me. I'm doing a school talk on the 11th, and we're giving 20 copies to 20 kids in this class.
Outstanding.
And I was the keynote lunchtime speaker for the LibraryCon Live, which there was, I guess, over 6,000 people that registered, and they got my comic 6,000 librarians that were registered. There was 2,800 people watching my live stream. And I'm really grateful for the trying to utilize various outlets versus like hammering the direct market and really leaning into Amazon, which is one of the biggest comic book sellers out there. So I feel like I'm getting small, like at every store you get like a person that works there, but I'm also trying to get a lot of librarians that are trying to reach Native American and Mexican American or Latinx people.
Sure, that's great, man. And I know I've gone to the one ALA Expo that they had in Chicago about 2 or 3 years ago, and really spoke to the organizers and librarians as well and publishers. And it really is kind of the secret weapon of comics in terms of that they are out there and they are advocating at the very basic level of reading. As I always tell the story of my former brother-in-law, who's a good guy, They're my sister and he are no longer together, but he is a good guy and he means well. And my youngest nephew was having trouble reading, and I was giving him kids comics and stuff. And he's kind of a jock, and he's like,
Right.
I appreciate it, but they're really more into sports than they are comics, because he has an older brother too. And I'm like, yeah, man, but like the little one's having trouble reading, and he's reading this stuff. And he literally, I watched him like switch for about 5 seconds and go, yeah, you're right, never mind. And walk away, and it's like, yeah, you're doing a good thing. I'm like, yeah, dumbass, exactly, all right? It's like the kid's reading. So there's that level. But again, also, we all want to see stories where we can see ourselves in the stories. And I think that's terrific that more, not only people of color, but of other genders as well, are getting involved and saying, hey, we can tell these stories. And comics are so simple. God, I'm sure you know Will Eisner with the Army. Creating PS Magazine and stuff. Hey, the soldiers aren't figuring out these technical manuals. Well, how about making them funny and then making them comics?
I love those.
Genius, yes. Man. I mean, that's the thing. So it's terrific, and I'm really glad that the librarians are receptive, and I hope that opens another door for you. So is Comics Hub, now forgive me, because a lot of times I'm kind of knuckleheady when it comes to the retail side. Is that like a retail gathering and like kind of destination platform that they all kind of use? Yeah,
so the Adam was very instrumental in rolling it out and introducing it to comic book retailers. It's basically book scan for comics.
Gotcha.
So you know what's being sold in real time. You know where copies are at all times.
Oh wow!
And it's also integrated into an app where, if somebody buys this comic about, let's just say, Green Lantern by Gabriel Hardman and Corinne, and you're like, oh, if you like that, you'll love Invisible Republic, and they'll try to feed you more books that you are reading that are created by other people or those have those certain themes. So, and it's really easy for them to just do like push notifications. And, so I'm very hopeful for something like that, because I know that some retailers just kind of rely on what's given to them and what's available. And there are some retailers like Comics Paradise and different retailers that create their own POS systems or point of sale systems. So, I'm grateful for Comics Hub, and I hope it launches bigger, and I hope more people are more involved. I'm just all for anything that helps comics retailers sell more comics.
Oh, hell yeah.
I don't want this to be like a full endorsement, because like tomorrow anything can happen. But yeah, I just want more available tools that get people to come in and clear out their pull lists and do, and get more excited by these things,
Well, sure. And a lot of times, like you said, it's hard to have your voice heard and your comic book made aware, compared to the market right now, which is just saturated with, well-known names and licenses, Buffy comics and the like, and I don't know why I plucked Buffy out of my head. Star Wars comics, you name it, whatever.
Yeah, it's a great time to be a comic book fan and really enjoy what you love, like Stranger Things. There's so many different adaptations are happening, and I knew going into this was an uphill battle. I knew that, I'm going up against, and the interesting thing was, like, it's with Image.
Yes.
So I'm lucky. And when they shared the image of all the books coming out this week, it was like Moonshine by Azzarello and Lee Bermejo, Oblivion Song with Kirkman, and Family Tree by Jeff Lemire, and then La Voz De M.A.Y.O. It was like the most surreal thing to me.
No, I get it, man. That's awesome. That's like, I had that same feeling when I did the Prophets of Science Fiction television show, and we did the episode on Isaac Asimov, and I had no idea how they were going to cut the thing. And the thing ends, and it's Harlan Ellison talking about Asimov, me, and then Ridley Scott wraps up the show.
Wow!
And I'm watching the show with my high school roommate, or my college roommate. We were friends since high school, and he turns to me and goes, "Okay, who doesn't belong in that group of three?" And I'm like, no shit, man. So no, I understand the feeling, but that's all right. It's hey man, no, it's La Voz De M.A.Y.O is Tata Rambo is a great book, and it's deserving of its place among the Lemire's and the Azzarellos and everybody else that Image put out that week. So no, I can appreciate that absolutely, man. No, this is really great, Henry. I'm thrilled for you, and I'm glad that the book is doing as well as it's doing, and this is only the start. And I hope that it continues to do really well. So
we have a whole year to promote it. So to promote that it's out now, this whole last year of 17 conventions and talking about this book that's coming out. I promise it's coming, guys. Don't worry, it's on its way.
Where are you going to be in 2020?
So this next year, I'm Top Cow is going to be at Long Beach, so I'll have a books there for Long Beach, and then I will be at BCAF, the Black and Brown Comics Fest. It's in conjunction with the San Francisco Library. I'm going to be doing some workshops and speaking engagements with the library.
Terrific.
And then on Martin Luther King Day, there is a mini con where a bunch of Black and Brown comics creators will be pushing their books, and I will be with the bookstore that that the San Francisco Library works with, and they're going to buy a bunch of copies, and I'll be there signing and promoting them. And then I will be at Tucson Festival of Books, which is a huge, if you're a Tucsonan and you love books, it's one of the top 10 book fairs in the United States. And I've been going there way before I was a journalist and I was a comics creator, but I will be there as a guest. So I'm really excited to go back to my hometown and be a part of that.
That's terrific. I know I saw you. Didn't I see you last year at C2E2?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I saw you. That was my first time in Chicago, and I was really, really happy to be there. I missed the boat on C2E2 in Emerald City. I'm really close to Reed Pop, and I really like the kinds of conventions that they put on. So I see myself at possibly their later shows like New York Comic Con and Keystone and the Florida SuperCon. So we're talking, but we haven't really put anything down on ink yet.
I understand. Well, that's all right. You're unfortunately, I'm sorry that you're not coming to Chicago, but then again, I think you're picking a good year not to come to Chicago. I hate to say that because I do want the show to do well, C2E2, but it is the last weekend in February. And I can think of warmer places to be in the world than Chicago.
I'm from Arizona, so I love cold and snow.
That's true. I can appreciate that. That's a good point. You're sick of the heat. I understand.
So
that's
I'm just
hilarious.
there. I'm walking. I'm not driving. I'm not living in it. So,
true.
I would love to go back. I did do. Yeah, no, I really like Chicago. It's such a beautiful place, and so much history, and the beer and food is great there.
That's all true. That's great. Well, and last year I wasn't able to be there during the day because I was just starting my recovery from my little medical bullshit and everything.
Are you doing better now? Are you?
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, honestly, and I may as well tell the listeners and stuff. Yeah, I'm really close to being done. There are two small spots where the wound was, the top and the bottom, that are still healing. But I'm able to do 85% of what I wanted to do. They let me go to Portland and walk around, and they let me go to Connecticut, and I did the con out there, Terrificon. So I did Rose City and Terrificon late summer. So everything. I mean, it's going fine. It's just I can't work out. I can't get on the elliptical. I can't shake the gut right now, which sucks. But but it's all right. It's almost done. So everything's fine. But I kind of had to beg them to let me at least do after hours at C2E2 last year.
Good.
I'm like, all my out of town friends are in town, man. Come on. I just want to see people, and they're like, all right, but as soon as you're tired, you go home. So I did about 3 hours of after hours each night of the con.
It was good to sit down with you and have a moment. Because, you just never know when somebody's last con, and that goes for everybody.
Well, and I mean, literally, it's like waves on the shore. I mean, you crash on the shore, you have no idea where the wave's going to hit next.
Yeah.
So, it is so random, exactly, of like, okay, good, I saw you for 10 minutes. That's great, because I may not see you for the rest of the weekend.
Right.
So, it's only worse in New York and San Diego, obviously, with the really big shows.
Oh, definitely.
Too funny, man. Well, that's cool, and everything's good at Top Cow. How's Matt and everybody?
Yeah, Matt and Colleen Doran are coming out with a new book called The Clock in January.
Oh, that's right. Goddamn, I got to talk to both of them. I haven't had Colleen on in ages.
Yes,
I'm shameful of how long it's been since I've talked to Colleen. I love her.
She's coming off of the Neil Gaiman books, No Apple Glass, and Soul Bridge. I mean, she's just getting better and better every day, and this is like if people like Think Tank, they're going to love this because it's a brand new story, but with that spirit, something, Matt was telling us about this, and the story's about weaponized cancer. And we're like, wow, what a great idea, but why would you come up with something like that?
Man, he always is reading and finding interesting things and turning them into comics. Honestly, Matt's like one of those great, I think, concept guys like Tim Seeley and Kirkman and people like that, truly. And honestly, whenever I hear, like Think Tank, The Tithe, I loved The Tithe. I thought The Tithe was such an interesting idea. And I think that's one of Matt's strengths, is coming up with big concepts, so that doesn't surprise me.
And Mark has been hitting the road, and he's...
Silvestri,
Yeah, Mark Silvestri has been, he finally was able to talk about his Batman project, and I'm lucky to be in the office, and we get to see pages, and it's...
Oh, cool.
Wow, it's some of his best work, and we're really excited about 2020 as far as, bringing back some of everybody's favorite old characters that they keep asking me about, like Witchblade and Darkness, and there's a big push for that. So 2020 is going to be a really interesting year, and I'm just excited to be a part of the ride.
That's excellent, man. Very cool. Well, for now, we're going to direct people to La Voz De M.A.Y.O, Tata Rambo, Volume 1. A great original graphic novel. Henry Barajas telling his great-grandfather's story, and it's an important story, and I'm glad to help promote it and make people aware of it. I think it's a great project, Henry. I'm glad that you got the backing that you needed to get it done, and now you're able to really go out there and promote the product and get it in the hands of readers. So congratulations, and you're always welcome back. It's a pleasure to finally have you on, and I always enjoy our after-hour conversations, and I'm happy to continue more on the air.
Yeah, I look forward to always talking to a fellow radio person. So.
I forgot, what's your radio background, man?
I used to work for a community radio station called KXCI, cool. And I started off at the 3 to 5 a.m. shift on Tuesday nights, where I got to play whatever I wanted.
Well, that's good, man.
And then they were like, Henry, you're doing such a great job. We want to promote you to the 5 to 7 a.m. shift.
Oh, that's a little better.
Yeah, where everybody was like, hey, I heard you on my way to the airport yesterday. And then I got my own afternoon show, and it was on Mondays, which was awesome. And then, because you would get I got 420 one day, so I got to play whatever marijuana theme song, and I got to play I had full autonomy to play whatever I wanted. So I'd curate shows if the Emmys or the Oscars happened, I would have music from both of those, and
smart.
And I got to curate a LGBTQ radio program that would invited people from the community and tell their coming out stories, and that was one of the most important experiences for me, because there's a lot of issues and problems that LGBTQ plus IA people face. So it was when people don't get it or they don't really like it, or for whatever reason, I just try to ask people hey, if you don't get this or like this, talk to a trans person, talk to somebody and get their first-hand account of what it was like to come out, and it will change your entire world. So that radio station is very important to me in so many different levels as a storyteller and a person who loves radio.
That's great, man, and I'll tell you, that's cool that you did that with the slots that you were given, and I really, as frustrated as an old radio vet as I've gotten with big stations and terrestrial radio, community radio, you still can be a DJ or a host, curate a show the way you want to do it, and that was the fun of when I was in high school, college, and even early professional radio. And unfortunately, those days are gone. I mean, everything is so formatted and regimented that honestly, they've homogenized themselves out of relevance. And that's one of the reasons why I was so happy that when I became aware of podcasting, I dove head in. And, 15 years later, I'm doing what I want to do. The show is what I want it to be. And even when I have a guy on like Bernie Capel from the Love Boat,
that was a great.
Oh, thanks. Oh, I'm glad you listened, man, because I'm sure, the numbers are decent, but I also know that I've had better numbers with other guests and stuff, and I'm like, I don't care. I want to talk to Bernie.
Exactly.
Capel. I know he's going to have some fun stories so that the people that are listening are going to be entertained. And it's been so nice. I have gotten good feedback from people who are like, hey, that was really cool, man. You had a lot of really interesting stories. So, like I told them, man, I go, Stuart Granger and Lana Turner with Menudo on the Love Boat. That was the storyline. I'm like, help me out with that. How did that work out and everything? And he was great. He had stories about it, so it was fantastic.
Having to explain what Menudo is to people is one of my favorite things.
Jesus Christ, I know, man. Good, dude, funny. Well, Henry, seriously, good talk.
Oh, and can't wait to see you on the road.
Thanks, man. Likewise, absolutely, man. And good luck with the book. It's a great production, and it's deserving of an audience. And I want to help you connect. So it's my pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Pretty interesting conversation, don't you think, with Henry Barajas, talking about La Voz De M.A.Y.O, Tata Rambo, a great image collection, the graphic novel, and absolutely worth your time. It came out in November. Check with your local comic store. Order it if they don't already have it. But I'm very happy that he was able to get this off the ground, and I'm looking for more stories in the future from Henry Barajas. I hope you enjoyed today's Word Balloon. It was brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Thank you greatly, League, for your continued support via Patreon. Patreon.com/wordballoon. Word Balloon is also brought to you by Aftershock Comics. Hey, it's the holiday season. Let your loved one know how much you feel about them, and give them a choice selection from Aftershock Comics Holiday Gift Guide. Check out the graphic novels that are available. They make excellent gifts for the holiday season. It's perfect for a comic reader. This is the time to introduce them to a new Aftershock series that they might find interesting. But, they might be, a Marvel or DC head, and they may not be thinking of other publishers. You should definitely check it out, man. Put down that screen or phone and dive into something meaningful, something that will rock you out of your comfort zone, entertain yourself thoroughly, and leave you a better person for having the experience. Yes, because the great thing is about Aftershock, they're great comic books, but, they're in genres, and this is the time, too, to maybe convert somebody to comic books and say, hey, you know something? I know you like horror. Maybe you ought to check out You Are Obsolete from Matthew Klickstein. I know you like time travel stories. Check out Knights Temporal from Cullen Bunn, or the Rough Riders Steampunk Adventures. They love steampunk novels? God, think of the collection that's coming out for the Rough Riders, featuring Teddy Roosevelt, Harry Houdini, Jack Johnson, the heavyweight champion back in the early 1900s, and Annie Oakley as a great steampunk kind of adventure team. Really interesting books. There's also Aftershock Read Dangerously t-shirts available through the gift guide. So do yourself a favor. Go to their website, and you'll find Aftershock's Holiday Gift Guide and gift options. But in addition to that, you'll go and check out their specific stories, and you'll find preview pages, preview art, full story descriptions, and the diamond codes on how to order these books through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. Thanks again for listening. We've got a companion Word Balloon coming out today, and very happy to welcome Patrick Schumacher back. You might remember the NBC TV show Powerless and its short shelf life. Patrick was still a very favored writer in Warner Brothers world, and now he's working on DC Universe on the Harley Quinn animated show. It's fantastic. There's a sneak preview of the TV series on TBS running Sunday night. I recommend it, and I recommend you listening to this conversation with Patrick Schumacher on the next Word Balloon. Hope you have a great weekend. Until next time, Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions, copyright 2019.